If we're being honest about the situation, you knew right away, if you're paying attention in the second half, that the game was over, even in the first few minutes when it was still a 3 or 4 point game. Let's get to some Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. The Miami Heat last night disappeared in the second half, and the reason is they're not as good of a team. I don't want to sit here and pat myself on the back. I don't know physically that I even could do it right now. Emotionally, I very easily could, because I hate being that guy. I hate being the guy that wants to point out all the time about how right I am on things. And I'm going to do my best to limit that. But I think you could all just take a lesson from Pat Bev earlier today on Get Up.
I had the Heat winning before. I'm way off. But what Boston is doing to the guards right now, they're attacking them. They're getting in under Boston is rebounding them way better than them. They're just playing with a little bit more swagger, a little bit more edge. They're keeping them in 1-3 pick and rolls, 1-2 pick and rolls, getting the matchup they want and exploiting that Miami defense for sure.
We could have just stopped at I'm way off. And look, the reason is simply the Boston Celtics are a much more talented team, especially on the offensive end, than the Miami Heat. And that's the difference in this series. It is, yes, creating matchups. It is, yes, doing all of the things that winning teams do. But when you watch the Celtics come out of the half last night, they came out and were immediately taking advantage of not just matchups, open shots, hitting them, and you had their two star players show up after they were MIA in the first half. It was pretty easy to see. Now, I'm not going to not at least acknowledge that the Miami Heat are banged up right now, even if Jimmy Butler doesn't want to acknowledge it.
Man, honestly, it doesn't matter. If I'm out there, I gotta do better. I gotta find a way to help us win, and I haven't been doing that. I'm fine. My knee is okay. I just got to do better. It's no excuse.
But what is he supposed to do better when nobody else is helping him? Nobody else was helping him. Max Strus has been a completely invisible player in this series and when things have not been going well. The last two games, Max Strus and Kyle Lowry are a combined 1 for 26. How is that possible? That doesn't happen in rec leagues, and it's happening here in the NBA Finals. Gabe Vincent, I heard all about Gabe Vincent, and you're going to learn about Gabe Vincent before this series started. I've learned about him. He's a nice role player, and what do you know? Role players can't be counted on to play great all the time. They play great sometimes. Role players are front-running type players. When things are going right, it's hard to imagine that things are going to get turned upside down on you, and a lot of times they don't. But when things are not going right, it's not like they're capable of doing what Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown did last night, which was go from an atrocious first half to 37 combined points in the second half. That's why the Celtics are here. They have more options. They have more answers. Yes, the Heat are banged up, but when you watch two players come out and take a game over like we did last night and not turn the ball over in the second half like they did in the first half, this is what's going to happen. And what do you know? At one point, the Celtics find themselves up by 23. Game was over. And when the Heat are like an NFL team that just is solely reliant on running the football. If you fall behind by 2 touchdowns, you are in big trouble. And the Heat are very much going to be in big trouble when they fall behind. And Hemba, there's not the opportunity for them to come back in these games. There was the opportunity for the Celtics to do it to the Heat, as we saw in Game 3, but still, Game 4, what happens? Game 5, what happens? They got no shot because they don't have enough firepower.
They don't have enough firepower, and you see all the Heat fans on Twitter using the injuries as an excuse, using the injuries as a reason, whatever. We know that the playoffs are a battle of attrition, and the Celtics are working through it too. But if you were to ask me what the best 4 units are in this series in order, it would be Celtics defense, Celtics offense, and then whatever else you want. Probably the Miami Heat defense would be third, obviously. But I've been so incredibly impressed with how the Celtics play defense. This is a juggernaut, man. This is an absolute juggernaut. I think that we might wind up looking back on as being as good as some of those Spurs teams. I mean, right now, the shooting against the Celtics in the postseason, all 3 rounds, is worse than the worst team in the NBA shot this season. We're talking about the Nets, the Bucks, and the Heat. 3 excellent basketball teams. To me, my biggest takeaway of this series is the Celtics play defense better than any team that I can remember.
They are outstanding at it. And there was no mistaking that the 4 teams that were best in defending the three-point shot were the final 4 left in the NBA postseason. And look at what happened last night. The Miami Heat were 7 for 45 from 3. 38 misses in a game from 3 is the second most ever. 38 misses. So that brings us to this question. The unpredictability of what's happened and why we've had so many blowouts, specifically in this series, but really through the playoffs without. Here's Tim Legler, ESPN NBA analyst.
This is weird for me. I don't think I'm doing this a long time. I don't think I've ever gotten to a point this deep into the playoffs where I literally have absolutely no idea what I'm about to watch. That's how I feel throughout the last 2 rounds of the postseason. But right now, I feel pretty sure that Boston is going to go home and take care of business on Friday.
I'd be stunned if they didn't. I thought Celtics in 6 from the beginning. And again, just take your money and put it where I tell you to put it. Because that way, you're going to win. I don't want to put too much pressure on myself there, but I think it's fair to say.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.